The next presentation is from IDfy. The title of the presentation is Powering Trust and Intelligence Across the Insurance Value Chain. Presenter for the presentation is Abhijit Joshi. He'll be talking about powering trust and intelligence across the value chain using IDfy solutions. Talking about Abhijit, Abhijit heads the fraud and risk product portfolio at IDfy. He's an IIM Ahmedabad alumnus and former BCG consultant. He has advised several leading insurers in India. Abhijit brings deep industry insight and expertise in leveraging technology to solve some of the most critical challenges in the insurance ecosystem. Please join me in inviting Abhijit Joshi for his presentation.
Thank you, sir. Hey everyone, hi. Very good afternoon. I'm aware that my direct competitor right now is your post-lunch slumber, so I will try to make it as interesting as possible. So very quickly, in short about IDfy really. So IDfy is a 14-year-old RegTech based in Mumbai, literally 5 minutes from here. We are present in around 7 countries. We basically help power trust in all digital ecosystems. You name whichever segment, we are actually present over there, and we are there to promote trust in every single digital transaction that you are doing today. We operate at a very large scale. We currently help power 70 million transactions in terms of digital trust and safety every single month across different use cases. So these are the different segments in which we are currently live and active. So say for example, if you actually get onboarded using a video KYC call on any of the leading banks in India, some of the logos that you're seeing over there, that video platform is IDfy's. Right? If you are an employee of any of the leading insurance firms, right, general or life, it is very, very likely that your background screening has been done by IDfy, right? If you have actually taken a motor vehicle policy from any of the leading general insurers, maybe your car has gone through a screening process with our company really. So different, kind of use cases. But of course, one of the larger ones is also every single Amazon delivery partner, Zomato delivery partner who comes to your home is background screened by IDfy. So we work across different segments and precisely in the trust stack area. Right? So our company has 3 different platforms. One is the Onboard IQ. So think of your own customer journeys where you are trying to get the verifications done via say KYC, AML, and all those different kinds of instant checks which are regulatorily required in order to identify the customers. That's part of the Onboard IQ journey that you're looking at. We can also give you a link in which you can send to your customer and get the customer onboarded in real time, very quickly. Second is the one risk. In order to actually identify the kind of information asymmetry that typically happens in this particular space, that the customer does not disclose all the information, we can help power a lot of those solutions, and this is what we are going to double click on as we talk about. And the third and most definitely not the least is Privy, which is basically our consent governance platform. With the advent of the DPDP Act, which is going to go into effect very, very soon, we help power your entire consent lifecycle for each one of your customers and all other stakeholders as well. So I'll double click into the one risk part of it really because that's the presentation is out. So these, I don't need to tell you about the problem statements in the insurance industry, right? You are definitely well aware of this, lot more than I am. So insurance is essentially the business of trust with a 110% loss ratio is the way that we typically look at it, right? It helps, these are the different kind of problem statements you'll definitely be aware of entirely across the different life cycle, particularly for use cases like say motor insurance. There is fraud rampant at every single step of the journey, right? That's one of the biggest use cases that you'll be hearing about as well. Second is there is of course a significantly high cost pressure. Also considering there is such intense competition in order to get that kind of a business from the customer. So that becomes a second point to actually worry about. And third point is of course, if these frauds keep happening, if there's negative press about the insurance process, etc., that erodes customer trust in the company. So these are the key problem statements that we think about, and of course you will understand this a lot more than we do. So this is the overall stack of solutions that basically IDfy really offers. So say for example, right from the point of issuing a policy, right, performing the KYC checks, the AML checks, underwriting the customer. Now we can underwrite the customer in multiple ways. What is the kind of health issues or the kind of behavior is the customer trying to hide from you? Is the person already having a history of say a lot of rash driving, of say alcohol consumption, drug consumption, we can give that data for you because the customer is likely not going to declare the data upfront. Is the vehicle that's coming for say an OD policy having a history of a lot of accident claims? You might be getting the data from IIB today, but that's not fully up to date and not fully up to the mark either, right? We can help you understand up to a very high degree of confidence if this kind of a vehicle has an adverse history, which is ultra useful for the motor insurance use case. If you are looking at basically issuing a group health policy, right, to a company, do you know whether the company actually exists on the ground or not, right? In many of these cases for the group health policy for health insurance, what we have seen multiple insurers tell us is basically that the company, after they take the policy, they take insurance for all of the employees and then they disappear. The companies don't exist on the ground. How do you try to solve for such kind of things? So that's exactly the kind of profiling that we can do for you as well. And it doesn't stop there, right? Just before the policy gets issued, you also need to check for whether it has been any instance of mis-selling that has been done by any of the brokers or the intermediaries. We help you do that using a video call. That's our PIVC solution. You might be aware of that already. After the onboarding is done and after a claim eventually comes in, we can also help with the claim investigation using exactly the same tool that I spoke about. If the person who has filed a motor third-party claim with you has a history of 20 past motor vehicle claims, then you know something is off. You will want to investigate that particular person in a lot more detail and try to figure out what the kind of claims that person has filed in the past, and that's something that we'll talk about later on also, right? What's the history of the vehicle that has basically come for the claim? Is there history of a lot of accidents for that vehicle? Is there some fraud related to the seizure of this vehicle? All those are signals that we can offer you, essentially, right? And one very interesting use case, we can talk about it in detail. Just like I said, a company which has claimed insurance for all of its employees in very quick time. What if the hospital itself is a fraud, right? In a lot of the health insurance use case, the life insurance use case, you will have noticed that the hospital is actively colluding with the patient in order to extract a higher value, right? One very interesting use case that we saw over here is that when one of the leading health insurers in India, we're working with them, we figured that basically a 10 lakh rupee policy from a tier 2 town in India, that hospital did not exist on the ground, right? That's the kind of fraud which happens, especially in the non-network hospital kind of a space, right? And with the leading focus on the cashless reimbursement which is coming through, this kind of a check, this kind of a fraud check on hospitals also become very important. So that's the kind of solutions that we can really power for you. Just a few things on the first one, the PIVC. This is just before the issuance of the policy. We can do the video call with the customer and we can tell you quite a few things about this particular policy, right? One is the age and gender prediction, like male, female, what's the age bracket of this particular person. This should of course match with the customer details that has come to you, right? If it is not, then there's a mismatch right over there. Second is the mis-selling marker, and this is extremely crucial, especially as per IRDAI norms, right? We can detect third-party prompting. Basically, if there is somebody else who is sitting along with the customer and saying, oh, you have to say this, you have to say this. This becomes a very high risk marker. Actually, majority of the fraud that we're able to catch are over there, where our agent or the AI system is able to detect that in this call, there's not one person, but there are 2-3 people who are assisting the customer to basically give that answer. So that becomes a reason for fraud. And there are other markers as well. We can also do AI-based audits of the entire video call. We don't need an agent to sit and do it. That really helps in cutting down the speed, that helps in improving the TAT, etc., and also improve the accuracy very sharply. And this is a very important part, especially as life insurance penetration starts to increase across India. We will also be reaching rural areas where the internet connectivity may not be the best. Hence, if you are doing a video call with such kind of customers, you will need a solution which also is very stable at very low network speeds. And that's exactly what our video solution also offers. For context, this is the same video platform that powers the video KYC for India's leading banks and NBFCs also. So it comes inbuilt with scale and speed. Yeah. So this is the one piece that I usually really love talking about. So this is the piece about motor insurance underwriting and both claims investigation. This is a unique solution that we have built. So just for context, IDfy has India's leading database of litigation checks, that is both court records and EFIRs and police data. What we do with that data usually is to power checks against both the individual and entity, before giving them a loan, for background verification, for criminal history verification, you may be aware of those terms. But what we figured is that 10 to 15% of all cases in India, court cases in India, are actually related to motor vehicle. Right? Section 279, 337, 338, these might be very common terms for all of you dealing with motor insurance, right? We have extracted basically the vehicle numbers available in each of these places, standardized them, digitized them, and made it searchable for you in English. We have actually filed a patent also for this particular process. What does this enable you to do really, right? If a vehicle has come to you for an OD claim, right, for an OD policy to be issued, if you would know that basically this vehicle had a history of 10 or 15 accidents, you would either A, reject that policy, or you would significantly increase the risk premium for that particular vehicle you're talking about, right? And the same thing in terms of a claim investigation. If it's coming to you for a third-party claim, but you know that this vehicle has been through 5 or 10 claims, you would definitely want to consider this as a risk flag to investigate this a bit more to see actually what's going on. So this solution basically enables you to do that. As per our data, by the way, we can actually see that a vehicle which has accident history at the point of basically issuing the policy is 10 times more likely to result in a third party or an OD claim later on. So hence, knowing this at the point of onboarding becomes very important. And also, this data is usually more recent compared to the IIB data, right? Because it directly looks at the police data, court data, which is published on an everyday basis, right? You can play the video. That's just a quick. Sorry, so this is basically the kind of risk report on an individual, right? Not just on the vehicle. We can see over here that this person actually had a history, multiple history of incident claims being filed against himself. He had 20 claims that he has claimed, right? So at the litigation stage, you would definitely want to see what this guy has been up to in his life. He cannot be involved in so many accidents also, and right? And the common modus operandi over here is that the same person will be the insured, the accused, the victim, the driver in different claims. That is what we are able to track over here. We are able to say that we are able to figure out what kind of court cases the person has. This is the same report but on a vehicle. What we just saw was a report on an individual to see what kind of court cases he has against him. This is basically court case on a vehicle. You can see this vehicle has been involved in 3 road accidents, right? FIR, that is 304A, 337, 279. These are very high risk cases. Typically, what will happen is the police will also seize the vehicle over here, right? So an insurance claim becomes more and more likely in these cases. So if a vehicle has this kind of a history really that you're looking at, you would be typically careful about either giving them an OD or you would want to see what you can do with the TP policy also, while the rules over there are quite stringent, of course. And by the way, if you want to play around with this solution, please visit our booth. There's a QR code you can scan, you can check your own vehicle, you can see the kind of cases against your vehicle. Hopefully there are none. You can see the blacklist, you can see the challans, you can see all those details, etc. We are there over the entrance, right? Yeah. So this is, yeah. Now, while I spoke about the kind of more involved kind of checks really in terms of looking at the vehicle or in terms of looking at the individual, what we can also power for you right at the underwriting stage really to look at a very quick understanding of the risk being posed, right, is something that we called as Insta Screen for individuals, in where instantly we can tell you quite a few things related to the risk of the individual. Now, think of it this way. I think one gentleman around here was telling me one use case over here. A bank basically opened up a few accounts. The bank was the bank assurance partner for a leading insurer also, of course. That's how it works, right? Within a few days of opening the account, they all filed for an insurance claim. They all got out. Later investigation revealed this to be a fraud, right? This is essentially the mule account problem which is happening in the bank being transferred over here, because those accounts were mule accounts. The people who had opened the account had no idea that an account has been opened in their name. It has been expressly done with the idea to siphon off money from the insurance company, right? That's how insurance fraud works. Over here, hence, what we can tell you is quite a few things. One is the KYC data that you have taken matching with the person's actual details? What is the data as per the government source? Is the face of the person matching or not? That becomes a very important check. And second, which is again very interesting, is say for example, the phone number which had been taken for issuing this policy was a very, very recent phone number, right? It has been opened 2 weeks ago, right? You know that there is something going on over here. Typically, people don't change their numbers that frequently, especially since most of the carriers have, national roaming. You don't need to change your phone numbers very frequently. right? So in case it's a very new phone number, in case the phone number is not linked with say WhatsApp, Amazon, etc., it's very hard to think of about which 35-year-old male will actually be having such kind of an account, right? So that phone number in itself becomes suspicious. You might want to take other contact details, etc., to mitigate your risk. So that's the kind of indicator we can give you. We already spoke about criminal checks, cybercrime checks, etc. We can also give you a few more indicators. Like say, for example, are there certain clusters of PIN codes within India which are more prone to these kind of risks compared to the other? That can also be a signal for you. Sorry. Yeah, this is just an example of the thing that I just spoke about in terms of individual risk. These are all the different risk signals that we spoke about. We can talk about SIM name, telecom vintage, court cases, quoting history, where all is the phone number linked to WhatsApp, Amazon, Flipkart, etc. Which geography is that coming from? Is it high risk area? If you are taking the bank statement of the person, what does that translate to over here? Are there alcohol expenses, for example, right? Yeah, so that's just a sample of the report. I think you got the gist anyway, so I can proceed. Third thing, like I said, so what all have we spoken about so far? The detailed check on the individual, on the company, on the vehicle, and now an instant check on the individual as well. So this is basically what check we can do on the hospitals part of it. Now, like I said, in that particular use case, the claim which basically came in was from a non-network hospital in tier 2 town, right? Typically, you would not know much about that. So how do you even understand, or how do you even begin figuring out what to screen, what not to screen, right, over there? So what we have developed is a kind of a digital report where you will be able to look at the hospital basics in detail over basically a digital service. You will not need to visit them physically. For example, we can look at whether the hospital is registered on Rohini, IIB, all the different portals which typically exist for hospitals. If they are not registered, that adds to the risk profile. What is the kind of reputation the hospital covers, the owners cover? For example, one of the things that we actually found was that in case of a fraud hospital, the owners were convicted of running a fake clinic in the past, right? So if there is a kind of a claim coming in from this kind of hospital, you would be very, very careful about settling those expenses, right? So that's the kind of thing that we do. Nearly 8% of the hospitals that we have screened so far actually appear to be in the high risk category, which definitely, while we are not calling this out to be fraud, what we are saying is that this merits further due diligence for that particular hospital, right? So this can be used in two ways. One is when an insurer is trying to onboard a network hospital and they want to actually perform the due diligence for that. This can be the set of checks that are typically done that you're seeing over here. Yeah, and the second is if this is a non-network hospital and this has basically come in for a claim, you're suspicious about it, you can again use the product for understanding more about the risk profile of a hospital. Yeah, so those were some of the key highlights about where all the product has actually developed into over the past couple of years, and these are some of the testimonials from some of the insurers that we are working with. But I hope that some of the use cases, some of the case studies that we basically spoke about have resonated with you. In case you want to, of course, understand more about this, you're welcome to visit our booth and understand about it as well. Happy to take any questions. Yeah, this is about what we had.